Have you ever found yourself emotionally exhausted, not because life is cruel, but because your inner world feels like a battlefield? You wake up with good intentions, but by midday, you're overwhelmed. Stress, setbacks, and unexpected turns leave you feeling like you're barely holding it together. And yet, you know you're capable of more, stronger, wiser, more grounded. But here's a question few dare to ask. What if emotional strength isn't found by pushing harder, but by resisting less? What if true power lies not in the external victories, but in mastering the internal terrain? Today, I invite you to step into a different kind of strength, one that the ancient Stoics understood better than anyone. Not a strength built on noise, performance, or external validation, but one forged in silence, in self-control, in a mind aligned with nature and reason. In this episode, we'll explore 10 Stoic strategies that will help you navigate emotional chaos with grace, transform turmoil into clarity, and cultivate a kind of power no one can give you and no one can take away. We'll begin with a simple yet transformative principle. Know what is within your control and release the rest. And from there, we'll move through timeless practices that will reshape how you respond to stress, criticism, loss, and even your own doubts. If you're ready to reclaim your emotional balance, not by escaping life's storms, but by becoming unshakable within them, then this video is your map. Let's walk it together. 1. Practice the pause moment. Master your response. Have you ever heard yourself speak in anger and instantly wished you could take the words back? Have you ever sent that impulsive text, slammed a door, or made a choice you later regretted, all because you didn't pause? In those moments, your emotions didn't just whisper, they roared, and you, like most of us, reacted without thinking. That's not weakness, it's human. But the Stoics offer us a powerful alternative: the inner pause. The inner pause is the sacred space between stimulus and response. It is the breath you take before your next move. It is where choice lives, and more importantly, where wisdom is born. You see, emotions are not enemies. They're messengers. Anger, fear, disappointment, each emotion carries information. But if you act before listening, you become a slave to your impulses. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This is not just a quote to admire, it is a way to live. Imagine you're in a heated conversation. Someone insults you or challenges your ideas. The old pattern might be to bite back, to raise your voice, to win the moment. But what if instead you paused? Not long, just a breath. 5 seconds, just enough to observe the emotion rising inside you without becoming it. Just enough to ask yourself, what am I really feeling, and what response would serve me not just now, but later? This pause doesn't suppress your emotions. It honors them without allowing them to drive the car. It's not about being cold or passive. It's about being precise, controlled, stoic. Let's be clear, this takes practice. In the beginning, it might feel forced, but like any muscle, emotional discipline strengthens with repetition. Over time, your inner pause becomes instinctive. You begin to respond, not react. You bring reason into moments where most bring reactivity. And here's the magic: the world slows down for those who pause. You begin to see through provocations. You sidestep arguments. You rise above petty conflicts, not because you're afraid to engage, but because you've chosen not to be dragged down. Stoicism is not about denying feeling, it's about denying chaos. The person who pauses before they speak or act is not weak. They are powerful, because their words are not accidents. Their actions are not emotional debris. They are deliberate. And that is where real strength lies, not in domination, but in self-possession. So the next time you feel your emotions bubbling, whether it's irritation in traffic, frustration with a coworker, or anxiety about a decision, try this. Pause. Breathe. Reflect. Choose. Ask yourself, what would the wisest version of me do right now? That one moment of stillness could change the entire outcome, and if repeated, it could change your life. This is how the Stoics trained for life, not on mountaintops, but in the heat of everyday emotions. And so can you. 2. Be true to yourself. Live your truth without feeling shame. If there's one place where all growth begins, it is here, in the quiet, private arena of self-honesty. And yet, it's the place we often avoid most. Why? Because the truth is uncomfortable. Looking inward can reveal the parts of ourselves we'd rather not see. Our contradictions, our past failures, our insecurities, our excuses. It's far easier to point fingers outward at circumstances, at other people, at bad luck, than to face the raw, unfiltered mirror of who we truly are. But the Stoics taught us, the path to strength always passes through truth. To be emotionally strong, to navigate life with clarity and power, you must start by owning your truth. Not the version of yourself you project to others, not the identity you curate for approval, but the real you, the one that shows up when no one's watching. That's where your foundation is laid. Epictetus once said, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." In other words, don't decorate the outer life before you've examined the inner one. So ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What truths about myself have I buried beneath rationalizations? Maybe it's a pattern you keep repeating in relationships. Maybe it's a goal you keep postponing. Maybe it's a version of yourself you've outgrown, but haven't yet had the courage to let go of. Whatever it is, know this. Being honest with yourself is not an act of punishment. It's an act of liberation. Because once you tell yourself the truth, you no longer need to pretend. You no longer need to carry the exhausting weight of appearances. You can stop performing, stop hiding, and start healing. Being honest doesn't mean criticizing or condemning yourself. Stoicism does not advocate self-loathing. It calls for clarity, not cruelty. It asks you to observe yourself as you are, your strengths and your flaws, with the calm, unflinching eye of reason. And from there, transformation becomes possible. Think of this as a daily ritual. Take 5 minutes, sit in silence, ask, where did I fall short today? Not to beat yourself up, but to understand. Ask, where did I stay true to my values? Where did I stray? This small practice builds the muscle of integrity. Because integrity doesn't mean being perfect, it means being whole. And wholeness begins with truth. There's nothing shameful about making mistakes. What weakens us is denying them. What makes us fragile is pretending we are something we are not. But the person who can say, "This is who I am, and this is where I need to grow," is unbreakable. So let go of the masks. Stop fearing the shadows inside you. They're not there to destroy you. They're there to show you where light is needed most. The Stoic warrior is not afraid to face himself because he knows the truth is not a threat. It's a guide. Own your truth without shame, without excuses, without delay. And in doing so, you take the first real step toward becoming the version of yourself that no hardship, no rejection, no chaos can shake. 3. Every day begins with discernment. What belongs to you and what doesn't. When the sun rises and the world begins its familiar rhythm, most people dive headfirst into the chaos. Notifications buzz, tasks pile up, demands come knocking, and before a single mindful breath is taken, we're already swept into a storm not of our making. But what if we pause just for a moment and asked a deceptively simple question? What today is actually within my control? This single act of reflection, this quiet sorting of the internal from the external, is the cornerstone of emotional resilience. The Stoics, masters of inner clarity, believed that peace begins the moment we cease wasting energy on things beyond our command. Epictetus, whose teachings continue to echo through centuries, offered us this essential truth. Some things are up to us, and some are not. So what is up to you? Your actions, your choices, your interpretations, your values, the effort you bring to each moment, the discipline with which you meet discomfort. These are yours, utterly and completely. But other things, other people's opinions, outcomes, weather, traffic, even how your message is received, are not. And every time you attempt to control them, you surrender emotional strength in exchange for frustration, anxiety, and self-doubt. Imagine waking up tomorrow and, before reaching for your phone, taking 60 seconds to silently list the things you can control today. Not hypotheticals, not outcomes, but real grounded choices. How you show up to that meeting, whether you practice patience, whether you nourish your mind with wisdom or clutter it with worry. This mental boundary between what is yours and what is not becomes your emotional armor, because once you recognize that the chaos outside isn't your fault nor your burden, you stop internalizing it. You become a still point in a spinning world. The Stoics visualized this principle as two concentric circles: the inner circle, which contains our thoughts, decisions, and attitudes, and the outer circle, which holds everything else. Strength, they believed, comes from living entirely within that inner circle. That's where our power is. That's where our peace lives. And here's the truth. The person who knows what is within their control is not easily shaken. They don't overreact. They don't spiral. They don't waste time blaming or regretting or fearing outcomes beyond their reach. They focus their will and their energy on the terrain they can truly shape themselves. So start your day as a Stoic would. Before the world pulls you in every direction, ask yourself, what is mine to manage and what is not? Let that question guide your choices, and you'll find clarity where others find confusion, and calm where others feel chaos. This is how emotional strength begins, not with effort, but with awareness. 4. Practice gratitude every day. Remember what you have. In a world that constantly whispers, "not enough," one of the most radical acts you can commit is to pause and feel grateful. Everywhere you turn, you're told to chase more. More success, more validation, more possessions. And while ambition in itself isn't wrong, the constant pursuit of more often blinds us to what we already hold in our hands. This is where Stoicism draws a firm line in the sand. The Stoics taught that fulfillment does not come from acquiring, but from appreciating. Not from accumulating the external, but from awakening the internal. Seneca, one of the most revered Stoic minds, said it plainly: "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more." So what if the key to emotional resilience isn't in pushing harder, but in noticing more deeply? Gratitude isn't just a soft, feel-good emotion. It is a discipline, a daily training of the mind to recognize abundance where others only see absence. When you begin to actively practice gratitude, you rewire your emotional response to the world around you. You stop focusing on what's missing and start realizing what's meaningful. Start small. Before the noise of the day rushes in, take a breath and name 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be dramatic. In fact, the simpler the better. A quiet morning, a good meal, a friend who listens, a body that still breathes. The power of gratitude lies not in grandeur, but in presence. When you train yourself to notice the blessings woven into the fabric of ordinary life, you anchor yourself in emotional stability. Why? Because now you are less swayed by what you lack. You're no longer hostage to future achievements or past regrets. You are here. You are whole. You have enough. And this mindset, this daily choice, builds an inner fortress. Gratitude becomes a shield against anxiety. When you're focused on what you already have, fear of loss loses its grip. Jealousy has no soil to grow in. Bitterness finds no breath. And even in grief there is light. The memory of something once beautiful. The lesson carried forward. But let's be clear, this is not about ignoring hardship. Life will bring pain. It will test you. The Stoics never promised a smooth road, but they did teach us how to walk it with steady steps, and one of those steps is gratitude. Because when things fall apart, the person who has practiced gratitude knows how to find peace not in perfection, but in perspective. So make it a habit, write it down, speak it aloud, whisper it to yourself when no one is watching. I'm grateful for. Let this become your morning mantra and your evening anchor. And don't just keep it to yourself. Express it. Tell someone today that you appreciate them, not for doing something big, but simply for being who they are. Gratitude, when shared, strengthens not just you, but everyone it touches. In the end, emotional strength is not about how much you endure, but how much beauty you can still see while enduring. Gratitude sharpens that vision. It reminds you that despite the chaos, despite the unknowns, you are still surrounded by countless reasons to be rooted, resilient, and at peace. The world doesn't owe you more, and you don't need more to be okay. You just need to remember what you already have. 5. Daily reflection. Carry a mirror for your life. Most people go to sleep the way they live, rushed, distracted, and disconnected from themselves. The day passes, tasks get done, emotions flare up and settle, but few stop to ask, what just happened inside me today? And even fewer take the time to learn from it. But the Stoics did. For them, reflection wasn't a luxury. It was a necessity, a daily practice, as essential as eating or breathing. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, would write in his journal every night not to record events, but to examine them. His goal wasn't to remember what he did, but to understand who he was becoming. And that is the power of self-reflection. It transforms experience into wisdom. When you reflect at the end of the day, you're not just reviewing actions, you're studying your reactions. You're mapping the terrain of your emotional life. You're looking back, not to dwell, but to observe. When did I lose my center today? When did I rise above? When did I betray my values, and when did I embody them fully? Most of us run from discomfort. We distract ourselves with noise, screens, or endless to-do lists. But growth requires stillness. It requires you to face your inner world, even when it feels messy. The Stoics believed that life should be lived intentionally, not reactively, but intention requires awareness, and awareness is born from reflection. So, start a nightly ritual, simple but sacred. Take 5 minutes before bed, no phone, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. Ask, what did I do well today? What could I have handled with more patience, clarity, or courage? What emotions guided my actions, and were they aligned with wisdom? What did today teach me about who I am and who I want to be? This isn't a time for self-judgment, it's a time for self-inquiry. You're not condemning yourself, you're studying yourself. You're shining light into corners you might otherwise ignore. And in doing so, you begin to notice patterns. Maybe you always feel agitated after certain conversations. Maybe you lose focus when you skip your morning routine. Maybe you thrive when you take time to be kind to others. These insights are gold because they give you the power to choose differently tomorrow. Self-reflection is the compass of the Stoic life. Without it, we wander in circles, repeating the same mistakes, ruled by the same triggers. With it, we grow more conscious, more deliberate, more aligned. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. The Stoic does not expect to get everything right. He simply expects himself to learn to show up wiser today than he was yesterday. So, carry a mirror, not to judge your reflection, but to understand it. Let each day be your teacher. Let each night be your moment of quiet clarity, because the person who dares to look within is the person who walks through the world with power, poise, and peace. 6. Set clear priorities. Know what's really important. We live in an age of noise. Each day we are bombarded by notifications, deadlines, distractions, and demands. Everything feels urgent. Everyone wants a piece of our attention, and if we're not careful, we begin to mistake motion for meaning, busyness for purpose. But here's the sobering truth. You can be incredibly busy and still be profoundly lost. The Stoics understood this long before smartphones and social media ever existed. Marcus Aurelius, while ruling an empire, reminded himself daily, if you seek tranquility, do less, or, more accurately, do what's essential. This is not about doing nothing. It's about doing what matters most and letting go of the rest. Because emotional turmoil often doesn't come from having too much to do, it comes from being stretched in too many directions without clarity of why. It comes from giving our time, energy, and presence to things that don't align with our values, that don't nourish our growth, and that don't move us forward in any meaningful way. So how do we reclaim our peace? By setting clear priorities, by getting brutally honest with ourselves and asking, what truly matters to me? What are the things I will never regret investing my time in? What am I doing out of obligation, fear, or habit? And what am I doing because it aligns with my deeper purpose? Clarity is power. When you know what matters, decisions become easier. Saying no becomes an act of strength, not guilt. You stop being everything to everyone and start becoming someone with direction. And here's something else the Stoics knew. You cannot control everything, but you can choose what you give your attention to. And attention is life. What you focus on becomes your reality. So, if your day is consumed by meaningless noise, you'll feel empty, even when everything seems done. But if your actions align with your values, if your calendar reflects your character, you'll feel fulfilled, even in the midst of pressure. Setting priorities also means reclaiming ownership of your time. It means understanding that every yes you give is also a no to something else. And every time you choose urgency over importance, you drift further from the person you're trying to become. Ask yourself today, what are my top 3 priorities this week? Do they reflect my highest values, or am I being pulled by the priorities of others? If today were my last full day on earth, would I be proud of how I'm spending it? The Stoic doesn't wait for tragedy to get clear on what matters. He practices this clarity daily. He lives not reactively, but deliberately, with each choice guided by purpose, not pressure. So don't wait for life to force you into focus. Choose it now. Define your mission before the world defines it for you. Because when you set your priorities with clarity and intention, you reduce overwhelm, strengthen your emotional core, and begin to live not just more efficiently, but more meaningfully. Remember, you don't need more time. You need more alignment. And once you have that, even your smallest actions become powerful because they are rooted in what truly matters. 7. Practicing mental detachment, being present without being drowning. In a world that constantly shouts, reacts, and demands your emotional engagement, remaining calm is not a weakness, it is a superpower. Everywhere you turn, something is asking for your attention. Breaking news, online debates, judgments, expectations, the opinions of strangers, the approval of others. If you let it, the world will hand you 1,000 invisible ropes and slowly pull your mind in 1,000 directions. But the Stoic mind doesn't scatter, it stands. and it stands strong because it understands the art of mental detachment. Now, detachment doesn't mean becoming cold or numb. It doesn't mean ignoring emotions or withdrawing from life. Stoic detachment is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of perspective. It is the ability to observe the storm without becoming the storm. Epictetus reminded us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And reaction begins where attention begins. Mental detachment is the discipline of choosing where your attention goes, and more importantly, where it doesn't. It's the inner practice of saying, I see this, I acknowledge it, but I do not allow it to define my peace. You might be criticized, misunderstood, ignored. You might encounter chaos, conflict, or failure, but that does not mean you must internalize it. The world can bring noise, your mind can stay still. The external can spin, the internal can remain grounded. Ask yourself honestly, how many of your emotions are driven by things outside your control? The angry email, the social media comment, the traffic jam, the news headline. None of these events carry meaning until you assign meaning to them. Mental detachment is not about apathy, it's about mastery. It's choosing to engage only when it aligns with your values. It's saying no to the emotional bait that the world constantly throws your way. It's understanding that your peace is your responsibility, and protecting it is not selfish, it's essential. So how do you cultivate this kind of inner power? Start with awareness. When you feel pulled into frustration, ask, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release it. Don't fight it, don't carry it. Let it pass like clouds across the sky. Next, create mental boundaries. Just like we protect our time and physical space, we must also protect our emotional bandwidth. Don't let every opinion enter your heart. Don't let every mood of another person dictate your own. Respectfully disengage from drama, chaos, and distraction that does not serve your highest self. And finally, anchor yourself in the present. Most overwhelm comes from living elsewhere, mentally stuck in the past, anxiously forecasting the future, or absorbed in everyone else's business. But the Stoic returns again and again to the now, because this moment is the only one you can actually touch, influence, and shape with clarity. Mental detachment is not isolation, it's alignment. It's showing up to life fully aware, fully engaged, but never owned by outcomes. You may not be able to control what happens around you, but you can always choose whether to invite it into your mind. So today, practice the discipline of detachment. Let others panic, let the world spin. You remain rooted. Because while chaos may knock at your door, it is entirely up to you whether you open it. 8. Learn the art of letting go. Embrace loss as a part of life. Letting go. It sounds so simple, so peaceful. Yet few things feel more agonizing to the human heart. We've all felt it, the tight grip of attachment. To a person we once loved, a job we lost, a dream that didn't come true, or simply a version of life that no longer fits who we've become. And when that thing slips away, the instinct is to resist, to hold on tighter, to ask why, or what if. But here's the truth that Stoicism gently yet firmly reminds us. Loss is not the end, it's nature doing its work. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. To resist loss is to resist reality, and when you resist reality, you suffer not because of what happened, but because you refuse to let go of what no longer is. The Stoics didn't teach us to be indifferent. They taught us to be accepting, not passive but wise, because wisdom sees that clinging to the past prevents us from embracing the present, that mourning what's gone blinds us to what's still unfolding. Letting go is not forgetting. It's not pretending it didn't matter. It's not erasing your pain. It's releasing your need to carry it any further. You see, the pain of loss is inevitable, but the suffering, the ongoing agony that comes when we refuse to accept, when we replay the past like a broken record, when we ask life to give us back what it has already taken, that part is a choice. So what are you holding on to that is already gone? Is it resentment from a broken relationship? Is it regret over an opportunity you missed? Is it the image of a life you thought you were supposed to live? Whatever it is, ask yourself this: is this attachment helping me grow or keeping me stuck? The art of letting go begins with the courage to feel the loss fully and still choose to move forward. It's a discipline, a practice, a kind of silent strength that says, I release this not because it meant nothing, but because I now understand I don't need it to be whole. Letting go does not weaken you. In fact, it is one of the most powerful things a person can do. Because the person who lets go is no longer enslaved by the past. They are free, they are light, and most importantly, they are open to new connections, new meanings, and new strength, forged from having walked through the fire and come out wiser. And perhaps most liberating of all, letting go means you stop demanding closure from the outside world. You stop needing apologies that will never come, explanations that don't exist, rewinds that aren't possible. Instead, you give yourself permission to close the chapter. And when you do that, something incredible happens. Space opens up. Space for peace, space for presence, space for the next version of you to step forward. One not defined by what was lost, but empowered by what you've learned. So let go, not with bitterness, but with grace. Not because you gave up, but because you've finally chosen to rise. 9. Regain power by responding carefully, not reacting impulsively. There is a quiet power that belongs only to those who learn to respond instead of react. Most people live in reaction mode. Something happens and they immediately lash out, shut down, explode in anger, collapse in sadness, or spiral in anxiety. Their emotions run the show. They are passengers in their own lives, tossed around by every event, every comment, every little disruption. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic does not give the outside world that kind of control. Because here's a truth no one teaches us early enough. You can't always control what happens, but you can always control what happens next, and that's your response. Reacting is instinctual, responding is intentional. When you react, you surrender your power to the moment. When you respond, you reclaim it. It's the difference between being emotionally hijacked and emotionally masterful. The Stoics trained themselves in this skill every day, not through grand gestures, but in the small, daily frictions of life. Someone disrespects you, traffic gets worse, a plan falls through. You feel the urge to snap, to complain, to give up. But instead you pause, you breathe, you choose. That's the Stoic way, not to become emotionless, but to become emotionally sovereign. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And he was right, because much of our turmoil doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from the story we tell ourselves afterward and how we react to that story. So how do you shift from reactive to responsive? You begin by slowing down. Create space between the stimulus and your decision. That space is where your clarity lives, your discipline, your freedom. When someone speaks to you harshly, you don't need to match their tone. You can listen, evaluate, respond with calm conviction. When anxiety creeps in, you don't need to let it hijack your day. You can sit with it, ask what it's teaching you, and then respond with action rooted in reason, not fear. This isn't about perfection. You'll still slip sometimes, you'll still react, but with practice you'll react less and respond more. And each time you do, you strengthen your identity as someone who doesn't just survive life's chaos, but guides themselves through it with strength and wisdom. That's where true emotional power lies, not in controlling everything around you, but in mastering what's within you. Let others lose their temper. Let others drown in distraction, resentment, or fear. You walk another path, the Stoic path, the path of self-possession, of thoughtful choice, of deliberate living. Because in every moment of emotional intensity, there is a choice. React or respond. And the person you become depends on which one you make again and again. 10. Set daily goals. Ask yourself, what is my why today? Most people wake up and step into their day like someone walking into a room with the lights off. They move, they react, they respond, but without direction, without clarity, without purpose. And when you live like that long enough, something inside you begins to fade. Not your capacity to work, not your ability to function, but your sense of meaning. You get things done, but you feel disconnected. You check off tasks, but you question why they matter. This is where the Stoics offer us a sharp, clear remedy. Begin each day with purpose. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire and student of philosophy, didn't start his mornings by scrolling through distractions. He started with reflection. In his private writings, meditations, he reminded himself of his duty, his values, and the kind of man he aspired to be. He wrote not to impress others, but to align himself, mind and soul, with his why. And that's the invitation for each of us. Before the noise of the world reaches you, ask yourself, what is my purpose today? This isn't about crafting some grand, overwhelming mission statement. It's about choosing one clear intention for this day alone, one anchor to hold on to when the winds of chaos come, one North Star to navigate by. That purpose might be simple. Today I will listen with full attention. Today I will speak less and observe more. Today I will complete one meaningful task well and without rushing. Today I will act with patience, even when tested. When you set a daily purpose, you transform your day from accidental to intentional. Suddenly, your actions are not just reactions, they're aligned with something deeper, and that alignment creates strength. Because life will try to pull you in every direction. Deadlines, arguments, distractions. But your daily purpose pulls you back to center, to clarity, to yourself. This practice does more than guide your focus, it builds confidence. Every time you set an intention and follow through, even in small ways, you reinforce your identity. You stop drifting and start directing. You stop feeling powerless and start remembering that you're not just surviving this day, you're shaping it. And let's be honest, you don't need to do more, you need to do what matters more. That's the power of purpose. It filters the noise and magnifies what's essential. So, tomorrow morning, before the world rushes in, give yourself 60 seconds of silence. Ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? What mindset will I carry into my interactions? What one thing, if I did it with intention, would make this day feel meaningful, regardless of outcome? And don't just keep it in your mind. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Let it become your compass for the hours ahead. Because when you live with intention, even the most ordinary days become extraordinary. You don't need a new life. You just need a renewed way of showing up to the one you already have. Let the others rush. Let them chase. You move with purpose. And in that quiet, determined walk is where your strength lives. You've just walked through 10 timeless Stoic strategies, 10 practices not meant for monks on mountaintops, but for real people navigating real chaos. Because let's be honest, emotional turmoil isn't rare. It's part of being human, but suffering through it blindly is not a requirement. You have a choice. and that choice begins within you. Whether it's taking back control of your mornings, pausing before you speak, letting go of the pain that no longer serves you, or simply remembering to breathe, reflect, and realign, each habit you adopt becomes a shield, a compass, a quiet strength that carries you through the noise. The Stoics didn't teach us how to escape life. They taught us how to stand strong within it, how to respond, not react, how to choose virtue over impulse, how to remain anchored even when the world tries to pull you apart. So, don't wait for a calmer season. Don't wait for perfect circumstances. Start today. Start where you are. Pick one habit, just one, and practice it until it becomes part of your foundation. Then build from there. Because the truth is, emotional mastery isn't a destination. It's a discipline. It's not what you read or what you know, it's what you do, every single day, even when no one's watching. And if you do that, if you walk this path long enough, you won't just survive emotional turmoil, you'll become unshakable within it. If this message resonated with you, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this wisdom, because the more of us who live with calm, clarity, and courage, the better this world becomes. Thanks for walking this path with me. Until next time, stay grounded, stay wise, and stay true.